Chapter 1406, Heart of Tao Shattered. Fang Yuqing stared into Zhang Yi's eyes and asked tenderly, "So, do you think it's better here, or in your dreams?" Zhang Yi looked at Fang Yuqing and smiled without hesitation. "Of course it's better here. There's nothing to hesitate about. Any normal person would choose to live in this place. That's it. Since it's better here, there's no need to worry so much, just go on living your life." Fang Yuqing took Zhang Yi's hand, smiled, and ran off towards the front. It was spring, the Flora was gentle, and the park near the residential area was full of green grass. Many people were walking their pets, and everything looked beautiful. "Zhang Yi, everything is an illusion. Wake up. Remember, you are Zhang Yi, the chaos of the Jiangnan region, and Yang Xinxin's favorite good brother." A distant voice came from the sky, reverberating violently in Zhang Yi's mind. The next moment, he suddenly opened his eyes. Everything in front of him had returned to normal. There was no longer a white ceiling, no longer the gentle and lovely Fang Yuqing, nor the united and friendly neighbors, nor the warm Yuelu community like spring. Zhang Yi stared blankly ahead, only a young monk looked at him with surprise and regret. Zhang Yi suddenly felt something cold on his face. He had just shed tears without knowing it. Everything was like a dream. Even though he knew full well that what he had just experienced was all fake, it was still unforgettable. The Undertaker said, "Amitabha, I never thought that you, the donor, would have such a strong mind. It seems that you are destined to be with Buddhism." The Undertaker said with emotion. The 6 distinct senses can drag people into an illusion, showing them the most beautiful world, and they become unable to extricate themselves from it. Even if they realize that it is illusory, they are unwilling to wake up. But Zhang Yi has unexpectedly escaped from the illusion, which makes the Undertaker feel greatly moved. Zhang Yi didn't say a word, but he had infinite emotions in his heart. How could he have such a good concentration and wake up from the beautiful illusion woven from the depths of his heart? However, during his interactions with the Snow Mountain Eagle, he had learned about the Undertaker's abilities. He had long been prepared for this move by the Undertaker. That was why, before entering the Great Snow Mountain, he had Yang Xinxin shoot an arrow at him. The power of the rules category is mandatory and absolute. The rule of this arrow would only take effect after Zhang Yi had been controlled by the illusion. Through absolute power, Zhang Yi was forced to realize reality. There was no Yang Xinxin in the dream, but Zhang Yi absolutely could not forget Yang Xinxin, so the dream naturally shattered, forcing Zhang Yi back to reality. He looked up at the Undertaker and said softly, "Thank you for showing me everything. Although it was all fake, it helped me make up for the regrets I've had for many years. To be able to have a beautiful dream, isn't that happiness?" The next moment, Zhang Yi's tone turned cold. "But I won't let what you did to me go unpunished." The Undertaker frowned. "I only wanted to seal you temporarily. I know that you have already secretly colluded with Luozhua." Zhang Yi nodded. "It's good to know, so now I don't have anything more to say." After his words, he did not rush to attack. Instead, he waved his hand to the side. From Muyan's shadow space, a woman slowly walked out. She had long, seaweed-like hair, a perfect figure, radiated with motherly love, and was gentle and beautiful. When the Undertaker saw her, his eyes quickly lit up. She was Ruan. She was the woman who enlightened the Undertaker. She was the woman who used her warm, soft embrace to give him the most primitive comfort. It was because she helped Undertaker become a real man that he gained enough confidence to lead the army of Sangha Temple unstoppably into the depths of the demon abyss. But Undertaker did not understand why his beloved woman was here, next to Zhang Yi. No matter what, his heart was full of confidence and pride. He believed that this woman had completely fallen for him. From their exchanges over and over again, he felt that this woman had completely submitted to him and had become his possession with all of her heart and soul. Undertaker waved at Ruan. Without saying anything else, he said just one word, "Come." Ruan looked at Undertaker, her eyes full of tenderness, as if she were telling him about the pain of longing that she had felt for many days. Her enchanting figure swayed like a willow in the wind. It was this plump, soft, and fiery body that had allowed the Undertaker to taste endless pleasures night after night. Zhang Yi also smiled at this moment. He glanced at Lu Ruan and slowly raised his arm. "Come." Lu Ruan's gaze immediately fell on Zhang Yi. Without the slightest hesitation, she walked over to Zhang Yi and threw herself into his arms like a little bird. For the first time, the Undertaker's face showed shock and dismay. He staggered back a few steps, his face pale, unable to believe what he was seeing. Clearly, this woman had already been conquered by him, hadn't she? Clearly, she had already become his possession, deeply in love with him and deeply impressed by his strength and profound knowledge, hadn't she? But why would she throw herself into the arms of another man right in front of him? Zhang Yi embraced Lu Ruan in his arms, and in front of the Undertaker, he squeezed her body hard, his face full of a mocking smile. "Do you like this gift I gave you? I forgot to tell you, she's the woman I found. She'll do whatever I tell her to do." "Oh yes, do you think she's fallen in love with you and is willing to do anything for you? Does she look at you with adoration in her eyes, calling you her master, making you think you have her under control? I can tell you unequivocally that she has received no less than 1,000 men in Blizzard City, and this is just her job." Zhang Yi's words were very calm, but each of them was like a sledgehammer, hammering down hard on the Undertaker's heart. He had lived for more than 20 years, and had never been in a relationship before. Lu Ruan was his first woman, his mentor. She made this big boy feel the joy of being a man, and thus made him fall deeply in love with her and unable to extricate himself. But now, Zhang Yi told him that his beloved was actually just a prostitute who charged money to do her job. The Undertaker's inner pride was completely destroyed in that instant. His dignity as a man, his confidence as the Undertaker of Tantra, was ground into the ground by Zhang Yi's frantic rubbing. Puff! In his panic, a mouthful of blood spurted from his mouth. He raised his finger, his eyes full of demonic hatred. You. Unforgivable sin. Chapter 1407, The Pain of a Man. As soon as Zhang Yi woke up from the Undertaker's 6 dusts and distinct realizations, he immediately launched a mental attack on the Undertaker. Isn't this way of fighting back the most interesting? There is a 2,000-point difference in the ability index between the Undertaker and Zhang Yi, which is not insignificant. But from the very beginning, there was also a huge gap between the two. As the strongest person on this trip, the Undertaker has always been the object of everyone's fear and study. Zhang Yi has a very cautious response plan for him, but the Undertaker is not in a position to do anything to Zhang Yi. That is why Zhang Yi asked Yang Xinxin to use her power on him in advance to prevent him from being controlled by the 6 distinct senses. Otherwise, just this one mental attack would be difficult for Zhang Yi to get out of, to put it mildly. He is not strong enough to approach the willpower of a Buddhist ascetic. But he has one great advantage, and that is admitting his own inadequacies, so he prepares in advance. However, can Undertaker, this proud and pure man, withstand Zhang Yi's methods? Watching Lu Ruan lie in Zhang Yi's arms, being held at will, his heart suffered an unimaginable blow, and he even vomited blood from the shock. Zhang Yi is also a man, and he understands what is most difficult for a man to accept. Especially for a man like Undertaker, who has just become a man, to realize that his first woman was actually just someone else's plaything. Even her company was just a task arranged by the master. This kind of blow can very easily make a young man collapse. The Undertaker's eyes were red with rage. The spiritual leader of Tantra completely forgot the decades of cultivation he had practiced, and his body exploded with an astonishing aura as he charged towards Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi, however, slowly raised the corner of his mouth. The Undertaker's mind was in chaos, and there was no way he could win this battle. Zhang Yi raised his hand and waved it, and the 3,000-dimensional gates of everything under heaven were built layer upon layer in the space around them. The Undertaker's fist slammed forward with a powerful blow. Where was the power of a reincarnated god and Buddha? It was clearly that of an overbearing demon lord. But this power was completely absorbed by Zhang Yi, unable to even damage his dimensional gates. Zhang Yi saw that the Undertaker's mind was in chaos, and his breathing had become unstable. He raised the corners of his mouth and said to himself, "Just as I suspected. The power gained from the most pious of faiths will weaken once that faith is broken." Zhang Yi had trapped the others in shadow space, but still held Ruan in one arm while fighting the Undertaker with White Eagle in the other. This scene continued to intensify the Undertaker's rage, and he lost his mind. Bang! 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 Zhang Yi kept moving, while White Eagle fired at the Undertaker. One black void sphere after another came to the Undertaker's body, then quickly expanded and engulfed it. Soon, a ray of golden light rushed out of the void sphere like the scorching sun breaking through the darkness, and then recklessly charged at Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi remained unhurried, continuing to slowly drain the Undertaker's energy. No matter how powerful he is, if his mind is distracted, his attacks will no longer be fierce. Anger does not make you strong. You are just a pitiful, abandoned loser. Hey, why? As the Undertaker of the Tantric faith, does being abandoned by a woman make you so sad and angry? Zhang Yi attacked while launching a mental attack on the Undertaker with a teasing tone and look. His hand wrapped around Ruan's waist, and his large hand kept wandering all over her body. This scene made the Undertaker almost lose his blood and reason. Ow! He roared, his golden fists wrapped in an incredibly powerful force, launching a merciless attack on Zhang Yi's dimensional gate. However, it couldn't be broken, it really couldn't be broken. Zhang Yi's defense was more than enough to face a mutant like him who had reached the threshold of the Black Chariot level. The key was that the Undertaker's mind was in a mess. His attacks were disorganized and he was not fighting with his own reason. Even though he clearly knew that he could not break Zhang Yi's dimensional gate in a head-on battle, it was as if he was just venting his inner rage, rather than actually fighting a battle. The powerful aura caused the entire room to tremble. Deji, Janda, and the others were still fighting, but now they had to protect themselves first. Anyone could see that the Undertaker had completely lost his mind. If they weren't careful, they would all die here. Deji shouted in horror, "Undertaker, calm down, calm down. Don't fall for the other party's ploy." But would the Undertaker listen? Because Zhang Yi's hand was still on Ruan's body, he was shooting at him while saying sarcastic things. What? Can't take it anymore? You don't have to rush, I'll take care of your woman for you. Oh, you don't want her to be torn between two sides, do you? Ruan, Zhang Yi looked down at Ruan with a teasing expression in his eyes. Tell me, what do you think of him? Ruan's eyes fell. She had been in the world of love and lust for a long time and had a very high emotional quotient. Of course, at this moment, she knew exactly what Zhang Yi wanted her to do. Ruan looked up and glanced at the Undertaker. The Undertaker's throat moved slightly as he looked at Ruan with longing in his eyes. At the very least, he hoped to hear a little bit of love and appreciation from Ruan's mouth, which would make him feel better. Ruan said leisurely, in fact, his ability in that area is quite poor, and I have to help him every time. I'm sorry, Jugo. You're short and small, and compared to the men I've experienced before, you really aren't very good. In fact, every time I pretend to be very happy, you simply cannot satisfy me. Ruan said these words without feeling the slightest bit of shame. But she knew exactly how to deal the heaviest blow to a man. Undertaker took a deep breath, his eyes wide, his heart about to break. Puff! He couldn't raise his breath in one go and once again coughed up blood in large mouthfuls. This is what happens when you get angry and your emotions get the better of you. But for Zhang Yi, this was everything he wanted. Take advantage of your illness to kill you. Zhang Yi's White Eagle continuously fired void bullets, and the Undertaker's body did not dodge or evade, and was completely hit by Zhang Yi. His heart was now incredibly empty, and he had even lost some of his desire to live. As a man, to be evaluated in this way by the woman he loved, he suddenly felt that there was nothing to live for. His body was swallowed up by the void sphere. Even though he had the golden light of the indestructible golden body protecting him, Zhang Yi's attack was no joke, immediately leaving him covered in wounds and his entire set of Dharma clothing in tatters. Soon, he appeared naked before Zhang Yi and Ruan. Chapter 1408, The Fallen Buddha. The Undertaker's Dharma clothing did not have the ability to repair itself, and as he despaired and did not resist, his clothes were blasted to pieces by Zhang Yi. Ruan couldn't help but burst out laughing. The Undertaker then came back to his senses, looked down at his naked body, especially that area, and an indescribable feeling suddenly welled up inside him. After extreme shame comes numbness. Ruan then added, "I'm really embarrassing, so quickly cover up your little thing." The Undertaker vomited out more blood. He yelled like a madman, and then his figure swept away, tearing the clothes off a monk to cover his naked body. "Chaos, for the humiliation you have caused me, today I will make you pay." Zhang Yi said indifferently, "You are so naive, no wonder Ruan didn't choose you." Killing someone by attacking their heart, Zhang Yi knew where the Undertaker's weak point was at this time, and he attacked fiercely where it hurt. You're despicable. Ruan doesn't love you. Dare you let her go and face me in a life-or-death duel? Ruan doesn't love you. That's enough, can you stop mentioning her in every sentence? You've been played by a prostitute. Or should I arrange someone for you to go to? Do you think she really likes you? By the way, do you know how many men she had before you? The Undertaker's heart was crumbling, and his body was swaying, almost unable to stand. This was not a physical problem, but a sign that his spirit had suffered a heavy blow. His entire life, although trapped in Tantra, had been smooth sailing. As the spiritual leader of Tantra, no one had ever humiliated him like this. Therefore, today is the greatest humiliation he has ever suffered in his life, and he simply cannot accept it for a moment. The Undertaker closed his eyes in pain. When he opened his eyes again, Zhang Yi saw, for the first time, such pure murderous intent in his eyes. He understood that the Undertaker was going to kill him. Only by killing him could the Undertaker prevent anyone from learning about Ruan. It was even possible that everyone present today would be killed by the Undertaker. "Wanna kill me?" Zhang Yi's mouth curled up in a sneer, "Can you kill me?" Not to mention the current Undertaker, who has lost his mind, even he in his prime could not break through Zhang Yi's defenses. The Undertaker raised his hands and looked up at the sky as if he were on a pilgrimage. The next moment, a ray of golden light fell from the distant sky and descended upon him. It was the power of faith from Sangha Temple. As he bathed in the golden light, the wounds on his body healed rapidly. However, this time, the power of the faith seemed to have weakened a little, and gradually became imperceptible. The Undertaker's pupils suddenly contracted. "How is this possible?" Zhang Yi was overjoyed. "As expected, my plan has succeeded." An Undertaker whose heart is completely consumed by emotions such as lust, murderous intent, and hatred is no longer worthy of being the leader of the Tantric sect. Because he has subverted the Tantric faith, naturally he cannot receive the blessings of the Sangha Temple. Zhang Yi's attacks continued to rain down on the Undertaker. The Undertaker came back to his senses, gritted his teeth, and his eyes were now full of murderous intent. "It doesn't matter. I'll get the blessings of Tantra back by killing you first, and then destroying the clan beneath the demon abyss." The Undertaker was surrounded by golden light, but his sword-like eyebrows were set upright, and murderous intent filled the air. It gave the impression that he was not a Buddha, but a madman. Doors of the six senses. He placed his right hand on his chest and spoke slowly. The next moment, a surging power exploded from within his body like a raging storm. No matter what, he was also a mutant of the Black Chariot level. Having lost his Buddha nature and turned into a demon, his combat power was still formidable. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes and knew that real trouble was coming. The only good news was that, having lost the power of the Tantric faith, he was no longer immortal. Swish! A dazzling golden light flashed, and in an instant it arrived in front of Zhang Yi. Facing the dimensional gate that blocked Zhang Yi's 6 directions like a polyhedron, he slammed out a fierce punch, a blow filled with his pure killing intent. Zhang Yi had no choice but to send Ruan into shadow space. Although Ruan could influence the Undertaker, it would also prevent him from fighting with his whole heart. Boom! The powerful force disappeared into the different dimensional space. The barrier of the small world constructed by the power of the mutant was very weak. With one punch from the Undertaker, the powerful force instantly filled the entire space. Crack! One of Zhang Yi's dimensional gates actually showed signs of breaking. Although this was only one of the 3,000 realms, its cracking showed the terrifying power of the Undertaker's attack. Zhang Yi frowned and quickly swept towards the air. He hovered in midair, his hands holding the white eagle, aiming it at the Undertaker. Starfall! The dual guns fired simultaneously, and countless void bullets enveloped the earth like falling stars, completely sealing off all directions for the Undertaker. The Undertaker looked up at the sky, raised his fists, and punched again, unadorned, into the air. The power of the void was annihilated by the golden power. In a pure power struggle, Undertaker still had a considerable advantage. After all, a 2,000-point lead in the supernatural ability index was not something to be trifled with. Zhang Yi calmly changed the bullets. This time, Undertaker still chose to fight back with his fists. However, when the bullets hit his fists, they immediately exploded violently. The nuclear bullet contained super uranium elements that could explode with the power of 7 tons of TNT. Undertaker was caught off guard and was also knocked flying. The worst off were Daiji, Janda, and the others in the room. Although the length of the room reached thousands of meters, they were also hit by the storm of the battle between the two and slammed hard against the wall. Many low-level mutants spilled a large amount of blood from their mouths, and they died on the spot just from being brushed by the aftermath of the two people's battle. No, this battle is not something we can get close to at all. Hurry up and leave, or we won't be able to save our lives. Although Janda was not afraid of dying in battle, this kind of meaningless death was not what he wanted. At that moment, they didn't even care about seizing the source of God, and they hurriedly pushed open the doors at the end of the room and fled from this place. Daiji looked at the Undertaker, who was in a state of madness, and then at the source of God standing on the display stand. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but when he saw that Janda and the others had all fled, he thought about it for a moment, then gritted his teeth and chose to flee first. At this time, the Undertaker was unrecognizable as a relative. If he tried to go over and dissuade him, he was afraid that he would be casually eliminated. In this room, at this moment, there were only Zhang Yi and the Undertaker left. The room is constructed using special barrier stones that can withstand their powerful forces without being destroyed. Chapter 1409, Ruan said. Zhang Yi and the Undertaker engaged in a fierce battle. Zhang Yi knew that this battle would come sooner or later, he just didn't expect the Undertaker to be the one to initiate it. Everything may seem accidental, but in reality it is inevitable. Zhang Yi has already come to the realization that these are all deliberate arrangements by the Guardian. First, they were exiled in all directions from the Holy Spirit Temple, and then lured into battle by the scent of the Source of God. But even knowing all this, things are not going according to his will. However, the current situation is all under Zhang Yi's control. The Undertaker's power is indeed formidable. The 6 senses Tao can comprehensively strengthen the Undertaker's body, allowing his eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind to reach a perfect state, with almost no flaws to speak of. Zhang Yi used an early setup to break one of his Buddha hearts, but still had to face his incredibly strong physique. Zhang Yi's pistol was loaded with a nuclear bullet, because an ordinary bullet was no threat to the Undertaker at this point. He fought while retreating, trying to distance himself from the Undertaker. Because if he got too close, he couldn't guarantee that the dimensional gate could stop the Undertaker. Boom! The Undertaker's fist blasted out again, colliding with the nuclear bullet. The powerful force directly collapsed all the display stands in the room, and the precious exhibits, including the Source of God, were scattered on the ground. Zhang Yi wrapped himself in everything under heaven, and everything followed the trail locked onto the Undertaker's every move, before beginning to fire accurately. For the first time, Zhang Yi faced an opponent of this level, and this battle was indeed extremely difficult. Even the Undertaker, without the blessings of the Sangha Temple, was not someone Zhang Yi could easily defeat at this time. Undertaker is truly worthy of the name. If I hadn't prepared multiple backups for you, even now I might still lose to you, Zhang Yi said, unfastening the collar of his armor. A round, plump head poked its way out with a bayou. Flora had been on Zhang Yi's body the whole time. Zhang Yi gave it a wink and smiled, "Go ahead and destroy everything." A flash of excitement appeared in Flora's eyes. It raised its head and let out a roar towards the sky. Roar! It was like the roar of the king of beasts, causing the entire palace to shake. Flora's body grew with the wind, quickly transforming into a beast over 10 meters long. It was pitch black, with every hair as hard and sharp as a steel needle. 2 enormous wings grew from its waist, like 2 long swords. A white mark on its dark forehead looked like a cloud, and also resembled the Chinese character for king. With a roar, its formidable power immediately erupted outwards. The Undertaker's pupils constricted. On the body of this giant beast, he sensed the power of the Epsilon level. Zhang Yi stroked Flora's head and said lightly, "After so much time of training, and feeding you a large amount of the Earth centipede origin, you have finally successfully broken through to the Epsilon level." Yes, now Flora is already an Epsilon level mutant beast. Back when it was still under the Qinling Mountains, it was only one step away from reaching this realm. During the 6 months at home, Zhang Yi continuously fed and trained it, finally allowing it to make a breakthrough. Let me reintroduce you, this is my battle beast, Flora, codenamed Qi, with a supernatural ability index of 13,000 points. Zhang Yi looked at the Undertaker and said with a smile. As a feline, Flora is a natural hunter with powerful fighting abilities. Therefore, after breaking through to the Epsilon level, its comprehensive attributes directly reached the level of 13,000 points, which was actually not inferior to Zhang Yi when he first broke through. A strong physique, agile reflexes, and the instinct of the top hunter are the capital it is proud of. Now, it's 2 of us against 1 of you. Zhang Yi leisurely said to the Undertaker. One-on-one, even if Zhang Yi wanted to defeat the current Undertaker, it would be a bit tricky. But 2 against 1 is a completely different story. What was originally a fairly even fight suddenly tipped in Zhang Yi's favor with the addition of 13,000 points to Flower. Go! As soon as Zhang Yi gave the order, he and Flower, in tacit agreement, split up and attacked Undertaker from the left and right. This feeling was like the beginning when Zhang Yi first met Flower, and the cat and the boy faced the West Mountain base together. Flora soared through the air, pouncing with a ferocious claw swipe at the Undertaker's left side. Zhang Yi was on the right side, firing 2 white eagles at the Undertaker and sending nuclear bullets flying at him. The cat and the man worked in perfect harmony, not in a symmetrical battle, to avoid collateral damage, but maintaining a 30 degrees angle. Time passed, and the Undertaker was on the defensive on both sides, with no time to deal with the pair. He used his left hand to block Flora's attack, and his right fist to block Zhang Yi's attack, and instantly felt the strain. Whoosh! He quickly darted away, and then leaned his back against the wall so that he would not be attacked from the front and back at the same time. Unexpectedly, this guy is quite smart, and he quickly came up with a good way to face the attacks of the 2 at the same time. Zhang Yi and Flower grinned. Flora opened his mouth wide, and a high-energy particle beam shot directly at Undertaker. Zhang Yi also activated the power of the Halberd of Doom with his dual gun. The room was limited in space, and after the Undertaker hid in the corner, it was even more difficult for him to avoid the long-range attacks of the two. His face changed, and he put his hands together in prayer. The power of his indestructible golden body formed a huge halo around him, as if he were invulnerable to all methods. Boom! The combined attack of Zhang Yi and Flora hit the golden halo hard. The entire palace seemed to be shaking violently, and the aura was under tremendous pressure, beginning to crumble inch by inch. Undertaker calmed his mind and tried to think of a strategy to deal with the two of them. At that moment, Zhang Yi's lewd voice sounded in his ear again. "Undertaker, your woman is very wet." Those words allowed Undertaker's demon to take control once again. "Damn it!" he roared, his mind unbalanced and his defenses broken. Boom! His protective aura was broken, and a large mouthful of blood spurted from his mouth. Zhang Yi and Flora did not linger for a moment, and they had already arrived at the front. The human and cat worked together seamlessly. They had known each other for 2 years, and they had practiced their tactics together. At this time, they attacked the Undertaker from the left and right. The Undertaker took a deep breath and fought back against two enemies. His strength was indeed not bad, especially in terms of physical training. Years of practice and kowtowing at the Great Snow Mountain made his physique even more terrifying than the enhanced mutants. But how could he defend against a mental attack? With help from his accomplice Zhang Yi, his mouth was never idle, and all kinds of words came out of his mouth, infuriating the Undertaker. Ruan once said that you are short and weak, which makes her feel bad. The joy on her face is all fake. She has never experienced the pleasure of a woman with you. Ruan said. Chapter 14:10, Time Swamp. Zhang Yi and Flora's combined fast attacks brought a huge amount of pressure to bear on the Undertaker. He was already at this point broken in his Tao, unable to fight with a peaceful mind, and coupled with the fact that Zhang Yi had been using words to disrupt his state of mind, it made it even more difficult for him to focus. Soon, he was actually at a disadvantage in the battle with Zhang Yi and Flora. This feeling made the back of his neck go cold. No, 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 no. This feeling is so strange. Why do they give me a stronger feeling than before? Forget chaos, why is even this cat, which is said to only have a supernatural ability index of 13,000, become so strong? In the room of the Holy Spirit Temple, the three figures had already become phantoms that were difficult for the naked eye to capture. Zhang Yi and Flora surrounded Undertaker, attacking like two hurricanes. This finally made Undertaker sense a slight sense of discomfort. Because the speed and power that Flora displayed was definitely more than 13,000 points. And Zhang Yi's attacks were even more ferocious than before. Finally noticed, did you? Zhang Yi saw Undertaker's expression and knew that he had discovered the problem. Zhang Yi gave a faint smile. He had no interest in telling the Undertaker the truth. Only characters in animated works would be bored enough to reveal their abilities to the other party, and he would not. Just now, Zhang Yi had activated his own ability. After his supernatural ability index reached 18,000 points, the power of time in his left eye had also been enhanced. The slight enhancement did not seem to be significant, but Zhang Yi had developed an extremely powerful ability, Time Swamp. He can affect the speed of time within a 1,000-meter radius. Rather than making himself faster, he can slow down the perception of time in a specific target. This does not affect the physical world, but only the specific target. This ability can reduce the reaction speed of the opponent by 30%. It may seem similar to Zhang Yi's own spatial acceleration, but in fact, it is far stronger than spatial acceleration. Because space acceleration only makes Zhang Yi himself faster. But the time swamp makes the designated target slow down. In other words, as long as they are within the range, except for the Undertaker, whose reaction speed will slow down, the speed of everyone else remains the same, which is also known as relative acceleration. Because of this, his and Flora's offensive speed is equivalent to a 30% relative increase against the Undertaker. The greater the number of people, the greater the impact of this ability. Even though Undertaker had realized that something was wrong, he was already in a state of confusion and his movements were no longer stable. Soon, he was knocked flying by Zhang and Flora's combined attack, bleeding profusely. Even the indestructible body cannot truly be indestructible without the mental power of Sangha Temple to support it. Cough. The Undertaker stumbled, his feet covered in blood. He coughed up blood, while behind him were the terrifying claw marks left by Flora, and on his chest were the bullet holes left by Zhang. The Undertaker, whose Buddhist heart had been broken, was like a dog without a home. Even though he could go mad with rage, he was actually extremely weak. He had already lost, and even against Zhang alone he didn't have an absolute chance of winning, let alone against Zhang and Flora now. Zhang looked at him with a calm gaze and did not continue with the attack. He simply said, "You have lost, Zhugo." This time, Zhang did not call him Undertaker, but directly said his name. Undertaker looked up at Zhang with a complex expression in his eyes. In a short period of time, a person has suffered too great a blow and will temporarily lose emotion in order to protect themselves. He looked at Zhang in a daze and did not say anything. Perhaps he did not know what he was doing here either. Why fight? And why did he lose? I hope this defeat will teach you a lesson. Sometimes you shouldn't be so arrogant, and you shouldn't think that the Undertaker of Tantra is invincible. Learn to respect your opponent, and that is also respecting yourself. Zhang retreated step by step with caution. He raised his hand and collected all the items from the collection of King Nash that were scattered around the room, including naturally the Source of God. Subsequently, Zhang left this room with Flora. He did not kill the Undertaker. Not because he didn't want to, but because killing the Undertaker would have come at too great a cost. A powerful being with an ability index of 20,000 points, if it weren't for the fact that his heart was broken, Zhang would have found it difficult to defeat him so easily. But if he wanted to take his life, the power that the Undertaker would unleash out of his instinct to survive was something Zhang was not willing to face. Not to mention, he had other plans, and there were powerful beings from the Nash Kingdom that he needed to face next. After arriving in the next room, Zhang extended his right hand and tugged hard in the shadows on the wall. A man in a black robe stepped out of the shadows. The leader of the resistance army, Luozhua, the Snow Eagle. Zhang glanced at him and said, "I'll leave the rest to you." "But can you win?" Luozhua had been hiding in Muyan's shadow space since Zhang entered the Great Snow Mountain. He and Zhang had made a pact to work together against the Undertaker and Sangha Temple. At that time, he told Zhang a secret about him and the Undertaker. The two of them were identical twins. At the time, no one knew that the Undertaker had awakened the instincts of a heavenly ode singer, and that Luozhua also had such abilities. However, the mother of the hurting pair was unwilling to lose both of her children at the same time, so she only let someone take away her eldest son, Zhugo. Luozhua had originally planned to keep this buried for the rest of his life. He did not want to take Zhugo's place and become a puppet like Undertaker. But the end of the world was approaching. It made him realize that he could no longer hide. And he could never let innocent Zhugo join forces with the four Tusi clans to enslave the people of the Snowy Plateau. Luozhua looked at Zhang and nodded. His heart is already in turmoil, while my heart remains steadfast in my faith. That is why I will surely achieve final victory. Zhang shrugged. I have done everything as promised, and I will leave everything to you from now on. I hope that the next time we meet, you will have seized his divinity. Zhang patted Luozhua on the shoulder and then walked away. What followed was a problem for the two brothers themselves, and Zhang would not interfere. After Zhang left, the Undertaker stayed where he was. The room was now empty, except for large swathes of white, as pure as heaven, as empty as Zhugo's heart. In this battle, he had lost everything he held dear. His Buddha's heart, the power he was proud of, the woman he loved. And his dignity. The Undertaker suddenly felt a pain in his chest that was so sharp he could hardly breathe. He looked down and saw a black hole had opened in his chest, right where his heart should be. Black liquid was flowing from it, pooling at his feet and gradually forming a large abyss that swallowed him whole.